Let's start with this article, which we've been using as an example of experimental research. Now, when we are talking about the results, the most important part of the results are the figures and tables.
I am going to focus now on Table 2 and Figure 7. Again, these are very nicely designed tables and figures. Note that there are no grid lines, there are not excessive lines throughout here, and there are not excessive digits on here, and everything is lined up, so it's very easy to read down the columns and see the information. There's no background on these figures, so that it's very easy to see the data. Everything is well labeled, and the caption explains exactly what is in the figure and what is in the table. You want your tables and your figures to look like these. Very clean, nothing extra, very easy to read. Even when zoomed out, we can still see the main point of this figure. Now, when you are deciding whether or not to put your data into a table or put your data into a figure, the key thing to keep in mind is that when the authors put data into a figure, I assume that data is more important to what they want me to learn than data that's put into a table. Figures are more visually appealing, they stand out, and so I assume that is the most important information, the most important results. Less important, less compelling, less interesting results typically go in tables where they take up less space in the article. A table can include much more information in a smaller space, and usually readers do not pay as much attention to this. Of course, there are exceptions, but in general, figures are the important part. I also want you to note that every figure and every table, and figures and tables are numbered independently, every figure and table appears in the body text. So up here, we see the reference to Table 2. This polishing treatment reduced these, as shown in Table 2, and the where results in Figure 7 demonstrate that light polishing largely eliminates run and wear transient, even on rough surface. So these are very clear statements of the results. When you are describing your results, you should use a verb that indicates your level of confidence in those results. So strong verbs that demonstrate high confidence include demonstrates, shows, indicates. Verbs that reveal less confidence include suggests, appears, or even very little, low confidence, may suggest, seem to suggest. So note the use of the verb demonstrate here indicates to me that the authors are very confident about the conclusion that the light polishing eliminates the run and wear transient, but they are less confident about this finding here because they use the word suggest. So let's note the use of verbs when the authors talk about Figure 8. First, they describe what Figure 8 does, and then they start explaining the results. First, they use confident verbs. So sliding removed the tallest disparities, and debris began to accumulate. Then they get a little bit more tentative, a little bit lower confidence. The transfer material appears most stable, which suggests that these features helped anchor. So they're not sure, but this does seem like a good hypothesis. They say many of the features have been removed, which again indicates that's pretty strong that the polymer composite had an effect. You should be using these strong results verbs throughout your section and selecting the verbs that most indicate your level of confidence in your results. The more you are making hypotheses or inferences or saying what something might mean, the lower confidence, the more tentative you will want your verbs to be. Now let's look at the design or proof of concept article on SimuSketch. The user studies is the section that evaluates whether or not this worked. The first thing that the authors do is provide an overview. We conducted 2 user studies, so I know that there will be 2 studies in here, and they explain what the 2 studies do and what we can learn from it. Then they have clear headings for each of these studies. Because these studies are very small, methods and results for conducting the evaluation are discussed together. It is very common to see additional subheadings, so there could be a subheading for method here and results under here, but it is fine that they discuss them together. This paragraph explains the methods for the user study, and these paragraphs after here explain the results. Because they are very confident about the accuracy of these results, they use a to be verb, was, were, indicates high levels of confidence here. Notice in this evaluation that they are bringing in other studies. They say how their results compare to what other researchers have done. So their study is compared to other studies, and they explain what the differences are between the different systems. So notice again that they do some comparison, how this new design compares against the status quo. In the next section, they provide an overview of what this study is going to do, what they hope to accomplish. Then they discuss the methods of this, and then they provide a subheading here to go into very descriptive results. This kind of descriptive result is unusual in mechanical engineering, but makes a lot of sense for a user-based study. Note that when they have data, they put it in a table, and they use verbs such as indicate to suggest their level of confidence in this data, in this table. Note that all of the values in this column are lined up so that it's easy to read. They all use the same number of digits and digits past the decimal place in here, making it very quick and easy to comprehend. Finally, I want to remind you that the results from the evaluation should appear in the abstract. So in this design study, the last sentence of the abstract focuses on the evaluation results. Again, I would like some quantification here, but it is okay that they do not. Notice on the experimental article that the results are approximately half of the abstract. This is typical in experimental articles where the results are the most important news. By contrast, in a proof of concept or design article, the evaluation is much less important than the problem and the design.